Seen It podcast, the only podcast called Never Seen It podcast. That's what I'm listening to. Why is that? Because we have the gang. I'm not talking Venezuelan gangs, mind you. I'm talking the gang, the only gang that matters. Mr. Arnie, the one-man party, aka Arnold Callego. Mr. Justin Holden, aka Shibs the zombie. Of course, Mr. Alex Callego, aka Filipino Grigio, aka Daily Dares. And Donnie's off tonight, but he'll be back. Nay, you worry, he will be back.
He's literally behind the doors behind
yeah. But he's got other things going on, so
Yeah,
he's
he does.
gallivanting
he's cool
around the world.
He's making some meth.
Yeah.
Nice.
Tell him to FedEx me, overnight me some.
Arnold, sorry.
Just to wake me up. Let's not do that again.
You won't catch it if you put just a little tiny rock in an envelope.
Yeah, little tiny one. They'll be like, "Whoa, who's putting sand in our mail?"
It's just pop rocks. It's just pop rocks.
Yeah. The Never Snorted podcast. What are we talking about tonight? We're talking about the 2024 film Didi, directed by Sean Wang. In 2008, during the last month of summer before high school begins, an impressionable 13-year-old Taiwanese American boy learns what his family can't teach him: how to skate, how to flirt, and how to love your mom. This film stars Isaac Wang, Joan Chen, Shirley Chen, Mahila Park. I'm probably saying that wrong. A lot of actors who are not famous, but man, did they give a really good performance in this movie. And I just want to say, if anyone plans to watch this movie by renting it, don't rent it on YouTube, because you will not, for some reason, you will not get the Mandarin subtitles. I don't know why. I had to put it in. It was literally every subtitle except Mandarin. I had to put it in Spanish so that I could know what the mom was saying in Mandarin. So imagine me, like, I speak English and Spanish, and I have to read Spanish subtitles from a Mandarin translation. So that was great. I thought it was I was telling Alex this. I thought it was a creative choice. Like, maybe they don't want the viewer to know what the mom is saying. It's all through the context of her son. But that doesn't make sense, because she has entire scenes where she's speaking a lot. And I'm like, wait a minute. Something's going on here. So, and I know I'm not crazy, because someone else commented on the movie on YouTube that, hey, did anyone else miss the Mandarin subtitles? So, but that's the movie. So I'm gonna ask. So, who chose this, and why did you choose it?
That would be me.
Awesome.
I chose this movie. I chose it because I don't know. It was something that resonated with it for me. Like, even just watching the trailer, for the movie. This coming of age kind of style story. I love these kinds of stories, but it was also in the perspective of an Asian American. An American-born Asian American, right? And I went to go see it in the theaters, and I was floored. Even before I went to go see it in the theaters, I knew that it had won a bunch of awards. I was reading up on it, and it said it was nominated for 36 awards, and it won 21 of them. So that's awesome.
36?
That's really cool.
36 awards?
Yeah, I was nominated for 36 awards.
Shout out to Wu-Tang 36 Chambers.
Fill those W's up, right? How's it? I don't know.
Zoltan.
Like that. All right, calm down, Napoleon. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. It was just something that resonated with me. I actually ended up watching it in the theaters 4 times. But also at the time I had the AMC VIP, and so I was like, oh, I might as well make use of it, And there was no other good movies out there, but that's not to say that it was a bad movie or it's just okay. It was a great movie, and every time I watched it, I cried, Part of it is has to do with I really connected and resonated with the character, we'll get into it more and more in theaters, but in the discussion. But yeah, that's why I chose it.
Well, that's great. I mean, honestly, this movie unlocked so many memories from that era for me. One small detail that I'm sure you guys noticed in the beginning is that they're watching. This is a coming of age movie where they're watching Superbad, which is
Yeah.
a coming of age movie. And I thought, oh wait a minute,
Oh,
is this a mistake? Because I know this takes place in 2008, and I had to look it up. And Superbad came out in 2007, so it would make sense that they would be
Yeah.
watching Superbad in
They
2008.
were
But I
watching
thought
a
that was
movie
such an
on
interesting little detail.
they were watching a movie on Justin's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up because
Let's get into that.
oddly enough, I actually related so hard to this movie. Now, in 2008 was around the time that I actually got expelled from high school. Because I had really bad grades, and along with the bad grades, I got into a lot of fights. So they're
I
like,
don't know you were expelled from high school. That's
yeah,
a new
I
Justin
never-
Lore
either.
unlocked.
I never got
Hey.
I never got a high school diploma, but I did
Oh.
get my GED.
Get your
In
good enough degree.
2009.
Your good enough diploma.
My well, I'm very proud of it because it's allowed me to get a lot of things that I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
think most people who got high school diplomas even got. So let's just say the benefit of the GED is it turned my life around at a point where it was its lowest. I mean, it gets pretty low, but it was at a pretty low point in my life, and I'm pretty happy with that. But going back, a lot of this happened in 2008, and I'm out of school, and these are actually the kind of things I was like watching and doing. So surprisingly enough, I related pretty hard on everything in this movie, like especially like the scenes with like MySpace and things like that. Or not MySpace. Yeah, it was crazy how like not too long ago we were building like our own pages using HTML coding and stuff like that, and I resonated with that, going on to someone's profile and just kind of like lurking their profiles.
Who's their top 8?
Yeah,
on
who's their top
MySpace?
8, top 5,
Exactly.
top 10, whatever it was. You're able to get a code to increase it to like top 20 or whatever. So I remember that.
I didn't
And
know
then-
that. I love
and then
that.
the matrix drop down like graphics coming from the top and bottom of your profile. Just like a bunch of insane stuff. I think the only thing that I didn't really relate to is like the running away stuff. I would say that was like, I didn't run away because I was like, when I was growing up, I was helping my mom, even though I couldn't get a job and whatever. I was helping my mom with my brother mostly. So I think that was a little bit of a difference, but it was a single mom type of deal, and I didn't have a grandma, necessarily all the time to take care of us. Like we go visit her on every other weekend after church, and then we'd spend the weekend with grandma. But it wasn't like as close knitted as they were in this movie, though. But a lot of the 2008 things caught me by surprise. I'm like, wow, I actually have a very vivid memory of that growing up in that time. Even though I wasn't as young as those kids, I still saw and did mostly the same things, even as someone like getting to the end stage of high school.
Yeah. No, I
What's
think,
the age difference between those kids and you?
So, didn't they like talk about
They were
their
just
ages?
entering
Like,
high school. They're
like
high school.
yeah, they're like freshmen. So, well, in California, they're considered freshmen because once you go to 6th grade, that's freshman year, but 5th grade's the ending of middle school, at least in California.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I would say they're like 14, 15, right? Didn't they?
Hold on, wait. Hold on. Because it's the 12th grade, right? The 12th grade. The junior high is.
well, he's 13
right?
in the movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
10th grade.
Yeah, so they're
Ninth
like
grade, right?
either they're that's right. I'm totally confused. Yeah, 9th grade. You're right. Is freshman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he was 14.
But let's not
he was
get lost
14.
in the weeds too
Anyway,
much on the, yeah.
How old were
Anyway,
you in 2008?
I was like just turning 8. No, 2008.
Well, I was 22, and how many years
Yeah.
older than you am I?
Let's see. I was born in 88, so that would have been
20 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you weren't
That's
too
the
far
thing.
off.
I'm
You
not
weren't
too
too
far
far
off,
off.
but I would say there's a 5 year gap between me and these kids. So
Yeah. Well, even though there's a age gap, I think the thing I related to the most was the Didi was constantly getting kicked down, man. Like kid
yeah,
couldn't catch a break. Once you thought he was going to catch a break, he then they went the other way, and it was like I could totally relate to that the most. Just sort of the idea of like of feeling ostracized from like your peers, and kind of like doing things and saying the wrong things at the wrong times, and like kind of getting kicked down for that. I think that's what makes it such a relatable, almost universal story in a way. I feel like almost everybody can relate to like those types of feelings at some point in their life, especially as kids. But man, I felt so bad for him throughout the whole freaking movie. I was waiting for him to catch a break, and then like when he started working with those skater kids and filming their stuff, I thought, okay, this is going to be the moment in the story where he's going to make these cool videos. He's going to upload them to YouTube, because they focused on YouTube a lot in this movie, if you guys
yeah, they
noticed.
did.
So I thought, in my head, I thought, okay, he's going to make these videos. They're going to go viral, viral. Remember that? And he's going to experience the early internet age of going viral and stuff. He's going to be considered cool. People are going to, but no, they didn't. They didn't do that. That's a very first draft idea. Instead, what happened was the exact opposite. Like he ended up being ostracized by the very kids that he was doing the videos for, and because he was mean to his mom in front of them. And I thought that was another such a grounded thing, like kids trying to act cool and trying to like be cool in front of their friends by being a dick to their parents. And I'm like, as a parent, I'm like, oh God, if that ever happens to me, I don't know how I'm going to handle it, because the mom handled it a lot better than I think I'll handle it. So
Yeah. I think that if
Yeah.
you for that scene, that particular scene, I think there's like that whole kind of sea change in like culture, where like
yeah,
kids are starting to respect their parents more. They understand what's going on. At least certain ages, they understand the trials that a lot of parents are going through, right? Like either they're single parents or like the situation that Didi's in. So they understand, but like the difference, there's like a kind of also this difference between immigrant families
oh
and
yeah,
what they go through
yeah,
and what American born, or just like people who have been here for generations, like
yeah.
much longer than a lot of like other immigrants. It's sort of like they seem to understand a little bit better. You don't talk to your mom that way. She's the one that
God
raised
no.
you, you know. But then like
You catch
as an
five across the
Asian
lips if you
myself,
talk to your mom that way.
yeah. But like as an Asian kid, first generation, is that what it is when you're like the first one born in
Yeah, the
America?
first one's
Or
born, and
so
yeah,
I'm first generation Filipino American. I was like that. I didn't, you know, I was trying to find my place in in society and within my peers, but be accepted. And but I was trying hard to be accepted. I was doing things that weren't authentically me, but I thought they were cool. I thought they were like, and I didn't, I don't know about Arnold when we were being raised, but like for a time I pushed away from like how Didi did, um, from my own culture. Like,
isn't
oh
that
no, you're
interesting? How
so
like
Filipino, you're so Asian. Oh,
right?
that whole thing.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting how you can grow up in the same household as any other sibling, but you guys can have completely different experiences? Like
Oh yeah.
I thought about that a lot lately. Just like
I feel
Yeah.
thinking
like
about
I
my
don't
Yeah,
know.
own
I
it's
feel like
totally
siblings.
wild.
Arnold and I had like completely different experiences too.
Right. Then that's what I mean. Like that's so interesting how it just
Hello.
proves how different you can really be at the end of the day from your siblings. Even though you were raised by the same parents. And when I was watching this, Alex, I really appreciated that it's like they showed in a very grounded way what it's like to be in a multi-generational immigrant household. You have the grandma, you have the mom, and then you have Didi and his sister. And I don't know how much she was college age, right? Because she went off to college at the end, or did I confuse that? That's why she
The,
leaves at
the, the older
towards the
sister,
end of
yeah,
the.
she
Yeah,
went off to college.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. She went off to
Um,
college.
and it kind of made me think like, man, it's almost like a lot of us had the same upbringing, regardless of race, ethnicity, whatever. When you grow up in a multi-generational household like that. I didn't grow up in a multi-generational necessarily, but my grandparents lived very close to where I grew up. So I was always around my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. So I still like saw a lot of that. And when I saw that in this movie, I was like, that's so funny how like we're so alike in so many ways, despite all of our other differences. And I really appreciated that aspect of this film. I'm as well as many other things. But yeah, Arnold, have you watched this movie before? And what stood out to you the most, Arnold?
No, I have never seen this movie. I remember scrolling through, one of those nights when you're like, oh, what do you want to watch? And I remember seeing this and I was like, oh, this looks really good. I want to watch this sometime. But then after had scrolling for 45 minutes, then I was like, I don't feel like watching a movie anymore. So then I just didn't watch a movie. Just probably watched, I don't know, a food show or Sports Center or something. But finally, so I'm glad that you picked this movie, Alex, because I was wanted to watch it, and I did relate a lot to it. Back to what we were talking about, the struggles as a teenager growing up and trying to fit in, trying to be accepted. I feel like you did what you went the route that you did, and I went the route that I went, and I feel like it was almost like I had to I don't know, I felt like I needed to do that to feel accepted by friends and people that I wanted to be friends with, people that I wanted to who I thought were cool, and it was the stupid things that you would do as a teenager to be accepted, to feel cool, um, and um, so led me to a lot of different things, but you learn. It's part of growing up, but definitely relate to a lot of the stuff. Um, I grew up. When did MySpace start?
I that was like 2003. No.
2000. I was going to say 2003 was when MySpace started getting
Okay.
off the ground.
Quick question, because I'm glad you bring that up. But did MySpace have relationship status back then? I don't remember that.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
it
did.
did.
It did.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I
You
noticed
could
that.
put like single, married, and then there was
It's
like
complicated.
other.
Divorced.
It's complicated, yeah.
Okay, another
A
question.
couple others.
And this is all very, but were people still using AIM in 2008?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
2000.
I know.
But no, it
wasn't.
was starting to dwindle off, though. I think that at that point
Yeah.
it had reached its peak, and people were kind of more messaging on MySpace.
Yeah, because MySpace ended up having instant messenger on there too.
I thought it was so wild back in the day on MySpace. You could just go to people's pages and view their wall, and then the things that people post on there and write on there is like, "Hey, want to go to the mall?" Or I think that's what one of the things that they posted on there. Hey,
Right.
want to hang out at the mall? Like you can see like other people's business, and
Yeah.
that, and so then in the back of your mind, it's almost like for show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Uh,
oh, I know where you're going to be in about an hour.
Yeah.
Um, did you guys find it interesting that this was sort of like Didi was like, that's like the first generation where his social life started being shaped by social media, with YouTube and MySpace still being a thing and AIM still apparently being a thing. Did you guys find that kind of interesting? How like that's like the first sort of generation that came up with social media.
Yo,
And
it's kind of funny you mentioned that because, like I think it even goes back to when like you, Sam, and Tim were doing like YouTube videos. I think of that because I mean I did the same thing when I was going to Job Corps. We I lived on campus, so there's nothing better to do than to like record some stupid videos on our phones. Because my friend, he had a nice phone that actually had like a video camera feature on it. So we just made like stupid like videos because you can also pause the recording and then resume recording. It was like super like advanced technology for its time, and we made like a bunch of dumb videos and put it to YouTube. And so I can relate how it's like it was kind of almost a need to have social media at that point in time to connect with your friends, and that was the first time in ages I was able to connect with people that I haven't seen since like even elementary school. I'll find their profile by typing their name in. Oh, they have a MySpace page, and then I'll just see, and I'll be like, am I still gonna talk to them or not, based on like their pictures and their music and stuff like that. Nah, I'm not gonna message them. I'm not gonna friend them. And that was before like anybody can like see that you viewed their page or whatever. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting point in time that kind of revolutionized how we use our computers to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me,
So,
it
Yeah.
was
imagine.
for me. Okay, go ahead, Arnold.
Oh, so for them, it was an interesting time for a teenager or a high schooler. Um, an interesting time for.
We could do an
Hold on,
edit point.
guys.
We'll do an
Come
edit
on.
point. Yeah, no worries.
Hold on.
No, it's okay. Do an edit point. That's fine.
Arnold, where's the baby? Bring in the baby.
He's right here. He's trying to get some of these. He's looking at the fried green beans and the sweet potato fries. Oh,
Let's see.
Bruce.
Yeah, I won't.
No, you can't have none.
Sorry, guys.
I'm just gonna say this right now. What a perfect time for that to happen, because it's similar to what we're talking about.
Exactly.
That was planned. That was planned.
It was all planned.
Yeah, I texted mom and said for her to open the door and just start talking.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Oh.
I even told her. I told her that I were recording.
That's hilarious.
And just to be clear, your guys' mom was born and raised in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
so she's now lived in the U.S. way longer than she ever was.
Right.
But
let me ask you this. Right. What's the biggest relatable thing watching this movie and with your own, like, with your own parents and stuff, like with your mom, like did you see a lot of that? Did you see a lot of you and yourself sort of while watching this movie? Is that why this movie is like so relatable?
For me, it was definitely, there were certain aspects that were similar, right? Like that situation there. There was like, the kind of like, I see it now, like having time passed and like going through like, figuring out the way, love language and stuff like that, right? For me, I had this idea of love languages being like, oh, like how you saw on TV, like American sitcoms, things like that. And that's what was kind of embedded in what I found as the norm for me. And I wanted to be told they were proud of me, right? But to be honest, like, never heard it once. Still haven't, to this day. Like, can't recall a moment. I know they were proud of me.
Same.
That's the thing, though. I know they were proud of me, but they would do it in certain ways now. That I understand now, after having, gone through like a lot of therapy and gone through like reading like stuff like that. They showed that they cared, but it was just this sort of like how in the movie, a lot of nagging, right? A lot of nagging. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. You make sure you like just dumb stuff like it just feels so annoying as a kid. And it's like I wish you would like tell me you were proud of me, or like that, you know That's just straight up like,
Um,
rather than just like it felt like criticism all the time, right?
yeah.
That's what it
Oh,
felt
yeah.
like all the time. And
Listen,
but
you wouldn't be in an
the big
immigrant family
difference,
if there was no criticism.
yeah. But the
If you
biggest
grew up in an
difference,
immigrant family without criticism, your family was dead the whole time.
yeah.
Believe
But the
me.
biggest difference, the biggest difference between I saw that between my mom and Didi's mom. I think it has a lot to do with her Didi's mom being an artist, like being open to like culture and
Dude, it
society
broke my
and different.
heart.
Yeah.
That scene where she lost, where she didn't get into the art competition, where she gets that letter,
Oh
that
yeah,
broke my
definitely.
heart. I felt so bad for her. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I felt so bad. But let me ask you really quick, and I don't mean to interrupt, Alex. I'm sorry, but what was the deal between her and the grandma? First of all, was that
So
her mother or was
that's
that her
no,
husband's
that's
mother?
her husband's mom.
So that's her
Mother-in-law.
mother-in-law. Okay. And
Yeah,
what
that's
was
her
the?
mother.
I didn't go back and rewatch those parts of the captions. What
So
was the conflict there?
so here's the thing. There's uh, a concept in the Asian community called the tiger mom, and the tiger mom is it shows up more in like Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. It shows up in Filipino culture as well, but not so rigid. But it's still kind of rigid, where like the expectations to do well in school, to be like, you know, even and go do piano lessons or excel in sports or things like that. And it's almost like we're doing it for you, not for ourselves, right? Like I loved playing piano, but my mom was kind of forceful, like, why, I'm paying all this money, you need to practice. And it took away all the joy out of it, you know. Like I wanted to learn how to play piano, I loved music, but then it that whole like sort of forceful pushing into that sort of thing made me not want to do it. Like that's how I always was when I was a kid. It's like, don't force me, like I want to enjoy this thing. Like, but when you make me, I think that's why I stuck with kung fu for so long, because I enjoyed it and they weren't pushing me. It was something I wanted to do, right? And it was also really cool to spend time with like Arnold and like all my cousins and stuff like that. And also like some of my misfit friends that I went to school with, like also started going to kung fu with me.
Yeah, see
But it
that's
was
how
like,
I was with
you know,
baseball. My parents forced me to play baseball in elementary school, and I hated that shit. I hated it,
yeah.
dude. I almost got a heat stroke one time.
Jeez.
What
Oh,
the
sorry,
fuck?
that's not funny. But
No, no, it is funny now in
okay.
retrospect. I
Yeah.
remember, I remember going to my grandpa's house after the game, and I just lying on his couch and just passing out because I was so like just being in the sun all
Jeez.
day. And nobody had water bottles. Kids didn't take water bottles back then. Like we just
You're like, there's a
went and did stuff.
sprinkler.
And yeah, we were
Yeah,
we were raw dogging life in the '90s, guys.
there was this time when we were
um,
taking piano lessons, and our piano teacher, Miss Santiago, I'm calling you out, Miss Santiago. You well, I was playing piano and I wasn't getting it right, and she hit my fingers with a pencil. And I was like,
but
that moment that turned me off from wanting to
yeah,
play piano.
right. Now going back to the whole Tiger Mom thing, who were you going to say is the Tiger Mom, the mom or the grandma in that scene? Like, what
The
was
mom
going
is the
on there?
tiger mom. The
Okay,
mom
but
is the
why was
tiger
the
mom
grandma? Why was grandma getting pissy with her
because
daughter-in-law?
she thinks that in that scene, especially in the kitchen scene, she was like trying to, like the grandmother was trying to um, horn her way into like saying that she's there to help, right? But but the mom is like, you always just get in the way. You just let me do it. Like I know how to do this. Like you think I don't know how to take care of my kids. You think I don't know how to raise them. I know you think I'm a bad person. You think I don't know to take care of them, but she does. She's been the one there since day one, since like her husband is in all the way in Taiwan. She even takes care of the grandmother, and she just doesn't realize it or doesn't want to see it, because like I think that's one of the
Yeah,
things with also the older generation. I mean, I think it's also with a lot of older generations in general, not just Asians or any immigrants, but a lot of them like have this like, no, I'm independent. like I know how to do this better than you know how to do it. But the reality is like
Right.
we're all like all parents are going into this blind, and they're learning on the job all the time, constantly. You know, nobody has the answers, and because every kid is different. You know.
Yeah. And not only that, but I mean, grandma probably was born and raised and lived most of her life in Taiwan. Mom is here in the US now raising American kids. It's
Yeah,
not going to be the same,
it's
you know,
funny.
in
Like
so many ways.
that whole scene where he comes back after getting hit in the eye, and the grandmother's like, "Kids should be playing by the creek with crickets." And he's like, "It's like what? That's a completely different world. Like kids don't do that here in America. Going down to the creek, where's the creek? Playing with
Yeah.
crickets, you know."
Well, kids don't go outside anymore unsupervised. That
But
doesn't exist,
even back
you know?
then, the kids were still doing that, going outside
Right. But
unsupervised.
yeah. But it's so funny. It's so funny watching this and knowing it takes place in that era, knowing that was probably the last generation that could do that. Just be out and
Yeah,
about, uncivilized, you know, doing whatever.
getting in
You can't do
fights.
that now. Yeah.
And well, no, an interesting thing. I just thought about it. Like, yeah, that was the first generation of kids in middle school during that age. At that time, I was already over 21. Was already like in the club scene, the party scene. Um, so we're also it was also interesting being the first um, group of people to live through MySpace age at that age as well.
Yeah.
Um, just
Now,
thinking
Arnold,
about it.
would you say that you relate to Didi in that sense? Because I noticed there was a lot of him hanging out with his friends and stuff. First, the A group, and then the B group. The B group being the skater dudes. Would you say you did that a lot and you could relate to that a lot because that's kind of how your social circle was when you were young, kind of?
So I was a little bit different. I was kind of like a chameleon. Like I was cool with the cholos. I was cool with the the blacks. But my core group of friends, there was some black people, there was some white people, there was a
Yeah.
lot of Filipinos, like all my cousins and everything. Some white dudes.
Have you ever felt, and this goes to the room, have you guys ever felt like you guys kind of have always lived your life on the margins a little bit, just to like a little bit? Like you've always been kind of like the outsider dude
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
respective social
I've
groups?
I've always felt that way, especially in high school. My I had three friends, the guy friends, anyways. That we were all nerds and dorks, and we didn't party, we didn't go anywhere. We did kung fu. You know, we practiced kung fu, played music sometimes. The only other kids I hung out with were like Christina, the kids in the Asian club, and that was kind of like me. That at that moment in high school when I like discovered that club, that's when I started connecting with my Asianness, you know, because like I saw other kids really being proud of it, right? And so that's when that was like I discovered that club maybe around uh, I I graduated in '96, probably in like '94. I discovered that in my sophomore
Right.
year, and that's when I really started connecting with a lot of other Asians, right? And I didn't feel so weird about it, right? And I even more so embraced it and wanted my friends who were like the dorks who like did kung fu with me. You know, we would go. We would go. They would come to Asian club meetings because hey, it's open to
Hmm.
everybody. They like, but we wanted to embrace everybody, and so well, I didn't really think being Asian was cool until like '99. Like I always felt it was like cool to be Asian. I always liked certain Asian, but I knew that it was still on the margins. I didn't see it as really cool and this like kind of niche underground, like,
Yeah.
oh, something a chip on
That's
my shoulder
interesting.
sort of thing, until
Yeah.
'99 when I discovered Giant Robot magazine, that where they had this sort of, they showed it that like Asian culture was really cool. Like
Right, right,
you're
right.
missing out if you don't understand this.
Yeah, see, you came up during a time before being nerdy was cool and mainstream. Now it's totally mainstream, and it's like, oh, it's cool to be into whatever, Harry Potter, Star Wars, whatever the fuck. Back then, not as much. It wasn't as cool to be a nerd back then. Because we didn't have the internet to validate how cool it can be to be a nerd or whatever.
Yeah, people would
So
make fun of you by
You know,
nerd.
like that. A lot of that happened to me, where it was like it was uncool to like certain shows. I like had like a closeted thing for a little bit, where I was like, I really like these shows, but if I told any of my friends about it, I'd get criticized and made fun of, because I was already going through like a lot of bullying issues too.
yeah,
And it's like, I like Sailor Moon. Yeah, I like Powerpuff Girls. Yeah, I like My
yeah.
Chemical Romance. I hid the fact that I liked My Chemical Romance for so long,
You put a
and then
target on your back.
Oh.
for real,
MCR?
man, yeah, MCR. Hey, um, yeah, I like hid a bunch of things like that because I didn't want to get criticized. But now it's like I don't care. Yeah, I like that stuff,
Well,
and I don't
that's
care
the
what anybody
thing.
else thinks.
That's the thing about being a kid, is that you don't realize this kind of shit until way later on. And
Yeah.
I don't know how. I guess now it's probably easier than back then. How do you normalize with your children? How do you make it normal for them to know that, like, oh, you don't have to be afraid to show your interests, your hobbies, all
How do
that?
you normalize being yourself?
Well, I think
That's a
it comes in.
great question. That's a
I think
great
it
question.
came for me. It came from seeing others come together, and that's why like the culture of going to comic book conventions, like it started with going to shows, seeing other people who were like into the same weird stuff that I was into, but then I felt like when I went to Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con was where like it really hit me. It was like to be into like a lot of niche things, weird things, like, and see other people into it. It's like, man, that is such a like a cool thing to be connected to, like find these connections. And I'm super grateful for that kind of community. Like not just like, especially like when I discovered Giant Robot magazine at Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, and then I kind of like started to have this sort of not, I don't want to say a friendship because they were just more acquaintances, but like Eric Nakamura um, from Giant Robot, I'd always have conversations with him at San Diego Comic Con. You know, I don't know if he ever remembered me the whole like every single time, but it's
Yeah.
like I appreciated the conversations with him so much that like whenever I would talk to him, it just felt like connecting with somebody who understood me. And then on
Right.
like, and with that magazine, it was like this extension of like this other community that also got me, right? Like there are all these other Asians who got me, and not just the Asians in that magazine. They represented cool art. There was like Mexicans being represented in there. There was like white people, black people being represented. They were just part of this whole kind of cool art culture, music culture thing that like also appreciated the Asian community. And that's like how, like, kind of like how Didi in the movie finds his, at the very end, finds his tribe, so to speak, within the visual arts club, And I thought that was such a cool moment. It's like he's finding that, he's finding himself truly now.
That's the other thing I
Yeah.
related to. I was totally the AV club nerd in school as well. So when he joined like the AV club, I was like, God, that was me in high school. Like that's so, that's so relatable.
Yeah,
But dude, there was some Mean Girls moments in this movie too. When he's hanging out with the two chicks and the guy, and,
oh,
and I forget, what does he
yeah.
say? He calls her like something, but like in a very deadpan way because he doesn't know, the
He
tone.
called him a
Yeah.
dumb bitch.
Dumb band. She's like, what? What?
She's all, you thought that
I
was my
can't,
nickname?
that was my. I can't believe you just said that. This guy's whack.
Yeah.
right in front of him. I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, okay,
You know,
like,
and
be,
that kind of moment resonated with me like so deeply
right.
because I've had things like that happen to me in my own
You called
life.
someone a dumb bitch?
Well,
I'm
no,
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
not to their face, but but it was in elementary school, right? And I used to borrow my brother's clothes, like because at the time I like was we were almost the same size. It was like clothes were still tight on me, well, like wearing my older brother's clothes. But I thought they were cool because they were skate clothes, right? But I didn't realize it had a toothpaste stain on there on his shirt, right? I just wore it to school, and I remember like going to lunch and then sitting down. And it was sad, Like I look back and I don't think I really had any friends in elementary school. I had kind of these friends, but they were all also these misfits who were kind of mean, kind of like outcasts as well. They were
Yeah.
always getting like put in detention or like they were just like the bad crowd, right? And I wasn't a bad kid. I just was like I didn't know my place. I didn't know how to talk to kids. I
Well,
didn't
that's
know
the
how to
thing.
make friends.
Neither is Didi,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And so what
he
happened
does some
was,
dumb things, but he's not a bad
yeah.
kid, you know?
But what happened was I was sitting at the lunch table, right? And there's these two kids. I thought they were cool. I thought we were friends. But then they said I remember they said something. And there's this other kid who was kind of like this misfit. He was like kind of like I thought they were talking about him because he had been known to be like eating like I think he was homeless. Like he would grab at the end of the lunch session, he'd grab leftover food out of the lunch and eat right out of it. I'd see him do that. But he was sitting next to me and they were talking about me. They were like, "Look at him."
Oh.
He's like, "No wonder he has no friends." And
Oh,
like I thought they were talking about him.
jeez.
He's like, "Look at his shirt." And he's like, "What a slob." And then I realized
They're
I
talking
looked
about
down and I was
you.
like, I realized and I was like, it like made me like tear up. Like
Right.
I finished my food and I ran to the bathroom. I was just crying,
Yeah.
and
How old were you?
Damn.
it was like fifth grade. I
Okay.
never
Okay.
told anybody about this. I was like, I
Yeah.
didn't tell my mom because I didn't think she'd understand. You know,
Right.
it was just like one of those things.
Yeah. Kids can be the biggest assholes in the world
Oh yeah,
because they
Yeah.
don't know how to temper the assholeness, right? They're still learning. And a
yeah,
therapist once said, "There's no such thing as bad kids. There's only bad behavior. But if you don't change that behavior as they grow older and stuff, then they can become bad people." I think so.
yeah, yeah.
You really got to think
I'm
about
so
that. But yeah,
I'm so
go
glad
ahead.
because I can like my stepdaughter's the youngest one I've known since she was in um like elementary school, and she was the opposite. Like she was known for like um you know situations like that. Like she would like speak up for them. Like oh, if someone was um maybe homeless, you could suspect that or something, or like struggle, like maybe their family was struggling, but she would also do it like in a quiet way, like, and she would tell I know she would tell Carla, and then and then not like where everybody notices, but like, oh hey, you want to come over, and then like feed them, and then like in a way like take care of them, and like
Wow.
it just made me think like, damn, you see kids like who are would make fun of, um, think they're making fun of you, or joking around and stuff, but they're just being mean. But then there's like other stories where like that I can think of, like my stepdaughter, and um, I don't remember the exact like details, but I remember like several instances, like uh, at least when they're growing up. It seemed to attract like people that they needed to help, and and it wasn't like, but they would do it like quietly, you know
Yeah, that's a very mature thing for a kid to be able to understand that sort of nuance, you know. Um,
Yeah. There was
I've
something else I was thinking about, like about the movie.
I've had a incident kind of similar in a way. I guess my own version of that. Um, it was like uh, I've actually had a couple of incidences where it was like I got made fun of because like it single mom household. My mom wasn't making like a lot of money, and she was raising two kids on her own, live like paying for her own apartment, stuff like that. And yeah, there were times where it's like my mom just couldn't afford new clothes for us for a long time. So like I get make fun of for the clothes I was wearing because it had holes in it or whatever.
yeah.
Or like I'll have a stain on it that I didn't notice, and then uh they'll make fun of me and say it's like a cum stain or whatever. That is like, yeah, it's pretty messed up. I think there was the one in particular that sticks out in my mind, and it wasn't like okay, I guess it was sort of a physical appearance thing, but it was like me and this kid just started like hating each other for some reason. I'll never to this day remember why, but um like he would like get at me for like a lot of things. He'd be super annoying, and he'd approach me during like PE or in passing and whatever, just all the time, just like saying some crazy shit about me. And one time he came up behind me while I was walking during passing period, and he slaps the back of my neck, and he he turns around and he goes, haha, look, it's a redneck. although although it is really funny now, and it was like things like that like I went through getting bullied all the time. Funny
Oh,
enough, years
uh,
and years later, like we ended up becoming really good friends though. We squashed our differences. We squashed our differences so much that like after I pressed him up against a fence in a chokehold, we became fast friends not too long after. uh,
you
yeah,
said,
no, I did one of those, like I was so mad at him this one time because he was just harassing me. I like grabbed him by his throat and I fucking one arm threw him into the fence, and that's when we both became friends. Is
and that
after
kid,
that happened.
that kid now has a cabinet position. By the way,
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
serving the
Yeah,
current administration.
he's
when you were saying like, oh, that he was coming up behind you, I was like, oh no, don't say that. Don't tell me that that he pantsed you.
Uh,
Oh,
I remember that.
well, that's the funny thing because he
I've
did
seen that
pants
happen.
me.
Oh
He
shit!
has pantsed me in during gym one time. We were in the gym. We were
Oh
all
no.
like practicing like how to wrestle and stuff like that. And then there were girls there too, so it would be boys versus boys, girls versus girls, whatever. And right
Oh
in front of
no.
the girls, they straight up pantsed me. Luckily, they didn't grab my fucking boxers off because I wore
Oh
those
my
like,
god.
yeah, they just grabbed my PE pants, luckily, because they were also known to be ruthless and pantsing kids to the point that their underwear comes off too. So luckily,
Man.
my undies didn't come off there. So
Yeah.
thank you, Fruit of the Loom. But
I remember being terrified about that because it happened to so many of my friends, so many people that I know, where they would pants like with the underwear, and so out of paranoia, I remember I
did they
was in
pants you with their
transition age
teeth?
where like I still had tidy whities, but then I was like, oh mom, we wear boxers now. Can I get boxers? So then I would wear the tidy whities and then the boxers, as like a
Dual protection.
Right. Oh, you
nowadays you
wear the boxers over the PE
Yeah.
pants.
Arnold, I feel though that like out of all of us, you were probably most popular kid out of all of us.
I was
Would you
just
say that?
yeah, going back to that. I was gonna say like I don't exactly relate personally, but I saw a lot of that. I wasn't one who actually like, I was never really a bully or anything. Um, but
Sounds like
I wasn't
something
really
a
like
bully
a.
would say.
No, I remember there was one time in elementary school where like I think some kids there. Well, yeah, I remember Lalo. He was gonna try to bully me, like in the bathroom. But then it was probably like second or third grade. But then already, I think around that time, when did I start watching Rocky? Like around that age too, and that's when I started like even as
Probably.
an elementary student, I started working out and stuff,
I remember
and
you
just
taping it
because I
from
got
KTLA.
yeah, he didn't realize how strong I was, and then I think like he tried to do something, but then like I blocked it, and I blocked him. I blocked just the block was like really hard for him, and then I socked him really hard, and then like he started to cry a little bit, and then he never did anything, and then like all his friends they like changed their perception about me, but I never. Yeah, I mean, I never really was a bully or anything, but like,
Right.
still had the struggle of wanting to fit in, to be like with the popular crowd, and I did so kind of by whether academically, being the top of the class, or like when we're talking about piano, I actually did like piano, but I quit because because I was afraid that I was gonna look like a nerd, or like um, kids make fun of me, and I thought it wasn't the cool thing. Because now, like um, I look back, I'm like, man, I wish I stuck with it, because that would have been so cool to like. Even now, when I hear music, like my fingers, they just automatically go like to the melody. Um,
I do that
but
without music. I'm
oh,
constantly just, tapping and rapping.
I'm constipated.
Also that.
I know, me too. Like sometimes it's like too cold, and so I like tap on it to make it go down.
That makes mine just go
Speaking
up
of
even more.
bullying,
Yeah.
I actually, when I was in elementary school, I knew this kid named Paul. He was like a popular kid, and that none of those kids ever gave me like the time of day at any point in time, until the one time we had a forced partner science project, and they placed Paul with me to dissect like an owl pellet or something like that, something stupid, and like I was kind of like nervous. I was like, oh man, this kid fucking just doesn't like me, and he's like popular with everybody, and I know that like this is going to be probably the worst day of my life. And I was actually pretty wrong, because while we were dissecting the owl pellet, I was like cracking like jokes about what was in the owl pellet, and I don't know. I think it was like some stupid poop joke, so whatever an elementary school kid would talk about. And I think the proudest moment I've ever been while being in school was that one right there, when he was like, "You know what, Justin, you are pretty cool." And then that confirmation
Aw.
where I was like, "Oh man, like the coolest kid in this school, at least what I assumed was the coolest kid in school, actually said something positive about me."
I
I
mean,
was like,
dude,
"Oh,
men are so deprived of compliments and shit that, like, even little
yeah."
things like that will totally make you'll remember for the rest
Yeah.
of your life.
Dude, and I still remember it, and that was fifth grade,
Exactly.
dude. That was fifth grade. Shout out Paul. And I still have my elementary school like
Yeah.
yearbook, and I can like,
Ooh, let's look them up.
yeah, yeah, look Paul up. Hey, Paul, remember when you said I was cool?
Our social
Hey,
media
Yeah,
team will share that later.
just
yeah.
be
For me,
careful, Paul. You might fall in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
for for me, I was like I don't think I ever had. I kind of like shrank myself a lot. I just so I wouldn't be made fun of. I after like elementary school and like having all that stuff happen, I didn't take up a lot of space. You know, I wanted to. I wanted to like, um, I wanted to be take up more space. I wanted to show who I was, but there was like an amount of like guilt and shame for being who I was that um, because I didn't get the support and love that I wanted from that I felt I needed from my parents in the way that I wanted it. I feel like that's why I shrank myself. It's like I don't want to like take up anybody's time. I don't want them to think that I'm trying to be better or anything like that. But at the same time, I wanted people to connect with me for who I was. Like I wanted people like, oh, I'm a kung fu movie nerd. I love comic books. I love music. I loved
Yeah.
all that stuff, and I wanted to be in bands, and I wanted to like. Luckily, later on in life, I did. I ended up like joining bands, but that I was such a late bloomer, you know,
Right.
and yeah, it was all just because of my own initiative. Like I needed to do it, you know,
Right.
because of my friends, like Justin, like my friends, they encouraged me, like in the Asian club, they were like, like we I find that's why like friendships are so important to me, like I I feel so encouraged by just being around people who care that about me who aren't in my actual bloodline. Like that's why I'm like, like when things happen with my family, like people who just kind of like don't really pay much attention to me. It's like, oh, I have my friends, they
Yeah.
they care, you know.
Childhood is such an interesting journey, isn't it? Of trying to figure shit out, and then sometimes you, even into adulthood, you still don't have certain things figured out. And you see
Mm.
Didi go through that. You see him go from his core group of friends, sort of being rejected, and then ending up with the cooler kids. And you see him trying to impress them. But what does he do? He swallows the roach or something, which
Yeah.
immediately made me think of Arnold. Because we were talking about roaches, I don't know how many
Yeah.
episodes ago. And I'm like, oh God, he's trying so hard to break in. And it's like, it's so desperate, but he's a kid. He doesn't see that. And then like I said, the kids come over to watch the raw footage, and I, as a former professional video editor, I was getting some anxiety from that. Like he's going through the clips, and he's like trying to find the right one, and then he plays it, and he didn't get the shot, and I was like, oh no.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And they were like,
with the security guard.
I'm not a professional videographer or nothing, but that you didn't get the shot, bro. And I was like, oh. And then the mom comes in, and she's like, oh, hello. And he's like, oh, get the fuck out. And they're like, this kid's whack. You should talk to your mom like that. And again, insulting
Oh, yeah.
him to his face. And I was like, Jesus, this kid, this poor kid. Mind you, I was on his side the whole time, even when he fucked up. And he fucked up a lot. But anyway, yeah. So it's so interesting being a kid. And then, as a parent, you're seeing your own kid or kids go through it in real time, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be hard when they get into middle school. It's gonna be hard when they start getting into girls. It's gonna be hard when they, friendships and all that. Like it's, but that's just part of life, right? Like
Yeah.
facing adversity is just part of life. I mean,
Yeah.
that's it. So anyway,
You, you know what I thought was like
go
a
ahead.
really beautiful moment though at the very end was, when after he goes through all that sort of stuff with the you know getting in that fight, you know and you see this sort of like realization, like he's learning that he needs to ask himself the hard questions, right? He and that he needs to ask the hard questions. Like a friend of mine told me, he's like, open mouths don't get fed. And that goes in so for so many things. If you want to like get what you need, you have to open your mouth. You have to say something.
That's right.
And what happened was like, I think when he runs away and he goes and he sleeps in the park and everything, and I think one of those things he realizes in that moment is like he needs to ask the hard questions. And so he
Yeah.
goes home and he asks his mom, he's like, "Are you ashamed of me?" And that's one of those things that, like, when that moment when I noticed the difference between my parents and Didi's mom, right? Like, she was willing to open up. Like, that whole artist side of her opens up. It's like, no, this is like her speaking her heart, you know? And you just have
Yeah.
to ask her
And to
questions. Like, I think people are
yeah.
ashamed and embarrassed to do that. And I think that's a lesson
Right.
that he learns at the very end, is like, just say, ask them, ask the hard
I
And
questions.
to
probably
and
would have
to
only asked a question like that to mom or dad if Steve Urkel or somebody in a TV show
I would
also
have,
did that,
no, I still wouldn't have. I still did it.
because I would I watched those shows so much that like I thought that's how you're supposed to be, and so
right. Those 90s sitcoms. To give more context to to him running away at the end, he runs away because his mom and him have an argument after he hit one of the students that he goes to school with. He hit him with a skateboard because he made
Yeah.
some crack
yeah.
about it. I don't remember what the joke was. He made some crack
It
about
was he
something.
was making fun of him for not, like, kissing the girl that he liked,
That's
and then
right, right.
Oh,
calls him the FAG.
Yeah, that's right. And
I
then
was in the tutoring
Didi
class.
hits that kid in the back of the head with the skateboard. And then afterwards there's a meeting with the parents and the mom comes back into the car and she basically says, "I can't believe you did that. Like, do you realize how embarrassing this is for me?" And that also made me think, and I don't know if this is necessarily an immigrant thing or just in general, but like parents not wanting to be embarrassed by their kids. Like I feel like I screw up seeing that a lot. Like just
So the
the
thing about
idea, you know.
the thing about the tiger mom is, like, they see their children as trophies. They
Right.
don't see them
Well, yeah.
as actual
People.
children to raise and to be, like, actual, like, functioning members of society with, like, relationships and, like, loving
Yeah.
relationships with their parents. They're trophies to be, like, nurtured into these things that they could be proud of.
That
Where
way they can flex
you
with their
should
friends.
just be proud of your kids for being born,
Yeah.
for
And
existing.
Didi says some pretty harsh things to his mom in the car, which I can tell you, growing up in a Mexican household, you ever talk to your parents like that, you catch five across the teeth, boy. You never talk to your
He
mom
almost
the
did,
way
though.
he talks
He
to his
almost
mom.
did. He almost did,
He
though.
almost did. Yeah, she almost hit him. Yeah. What did he say? He said something like, "Dad earns all the money while you just do your dumb paintings," and there was something
He
else
said,
that he
"I'm
said to her.
ashamed of you. I'm ashamed of you. You're just a failed artist."
Oh, that's that's what it was. I was like,
Oh god.
no, he went
Yeah.
there. He actually went there. Yeah, that was such a visceral scene. I thought, and then him running away, and then him coming home the next morning, and he's like, you didn't even go out and look for me. And then they have that heart to heart. And
Oh yeah.
what does she tell him at one point in that conversation? She says, I've thought about a life where I never had kids, where I never had you. But then I sort of made peace with it and realized that you guys are my ultimate form of art. You know,
Yeah. She
the
she
you
says she says
children.
that she's proud of, like seeing you grow up and make friends and learning things that I could never teach you. That's
Yeah,
what's, like,
yeah,
so such a
that's what.
cool thing to say to your child, because you admit to yourself that there are things that I can't ever teach you that you're learning without me, and you're
I
doing it
agree.
beyond my scope.
That was such a that was such a beautiful moment. When she
Yeah.
said that to him, she was being honest. It seemed a little harsh, but it was just honest and heartfelt. And I thought that, yeah, like that is a great scene. And
But
what
she
happens after
ultimately
he
she tells him that she's proud of him, and that's what
right.
was, I think, to me, like, one of the reasons, like, I really like this movie too is it's almost like wish fulfillment, you know, like seeing
You
that
wish
moment
that
with,
these are the things your
like
parents
Didi.
would have said to you growing up. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that.
yeah,
I get that.
exactly, and it's like, I want. That's why it's one of my favorite movies. It's like, I wish that would happen to me.
No, I same, dude. I mean, you love your parents, obviously, but yeah, like you think about things like, I could have used more of that and less of this. I could have used more of that. And yeah, it's interesting how you see that in this movie, and you see her being honest, and you're like, okay, yeah, where was that energy when I was a kid?
Yeah, yeah,
But I thought it was interesting how he, at the end, what does he do? He goes to the girl that he liked, and you think it's gonna be that Hollywood moment where he like pours his heart out to her, and she's like, yeah, like totally, let's be friends, let's be cool. And she's like, no, you hit my friend in the back of the head with the skateboard. And then she walks away. And he doesn't get the girl in the end. Like it kept it pretty grounded in that sense. What did you guys think
yeah,
about that scene?
He at least he addressed it versus like where for me or I probably would have just like never talked to that girl ever and then just leave it at that. Like who knows what, and it maybe like 20 years later, like now, then run into each other and then finally talk about it and them like probably not even remembering it
30
and
years
then
later, she has like 10 kids. No,
I
I'm
know.
kidding. I'm kidding.
But I mean, that was a pretty that was a pretty stand up moment that he even like
I
talked to her.
appreciated that she turned him down, right? Like I appreciated that they didn't go for the Hollywood ending.
Yeah,
She's just like, no, you hit my friend, and that's it. And then she fucks off, and he's like, yeah, fair. At least I interpreted it. I interpreted it as him. Maybe he didn't think that,
yeah.
but the way I read it, I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, fair. I
he
mean,
did
fuck you
get
too, but
that
fair.
sort of a face like
Yeah, yeah,
he just stood there and like thought about it and was like,
yeah.
yeah,
Bitch
you're
ain't
right.
lying. Bitch ain't lying. No.
I mean,
um,
girl ain't lying.
girl ain't lying. Yeah, we'll edit that for our foreign audiences. Um, but what happened? I think that's pretty much the end of the story. I feel like he grew a lot in the span of. This is a very short movie. It's 90 minutes. I feel like he grew a lot in the span of those 90 minutes. And I think anyone that watches this movie will be able to relate in a lot of ways, more ways than one, I think. Like I said, there's a lot of universal themes in here about family, about generational trauma, about fitting in, and about living on the margins of society, and about definitely feeling ostracized throughout your childhood sometimes. So yeah, that's
What
pretty
about
much
this?
my final thoughts
What about the
on
sister?
it.
We didn't really talk too much about his sister.
Yeah, well, she wasn't
Like
in it that much either, and they
I
kind of
mean,
they have a very
they
But
had
I
hostile
feel that,
relationship.
yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up though, Arnold, because it was such a pivotal thing to go through. Because there was such a contentious relationship between the two, right?
oh my gosh, he
Always,
pissed in her lotion.
yeah. And then there was
What
that
hair get
moment
nice for?
when after he gets like feels completely embarrassed and ashamed of like not scoring with Maddie, right? Comes home and tells her like, I can't wait for you to go move away. Like, she that at that moment she
You,
realizes that like he really needs a sister. Like she's been messing up. And a little bit, it was like almost too little too late because like he'd already started going down this path, and she was trying to connect with him again. Like after like that moment in the kitchen where the grandmother and the mom are arguing, and she like offers to drive him to the business park to meet up with those kids. Like she's trying to connect with him, but she just doesn't know how. But she like the way she does it is just trying to be kind to him, trying to be understanding. And then that moment when she finally, it's moving day for her to go to college, and she leaves the sweater with them, and then they have that moment in the garage where they hug. It's like she's like, "Oh, I'll see you later, bye." And it was like an actual like you could see that they actually cared about each other because they realized what they were losing at that moment, and it was kind of a touching moment and like a sad moment where like the sweater that was so contentious at the very beginning, she gets a stain on it because she threw the chopsticks at him. She leaves the sweater for him, and it's like gives it to him, and like you see him sitting in her room. And at first she was doing it. He was at the very beginning of the movie. He was being annoying. He was going in her room to be annoying, to snoop on her, to like play with her things. But now that she's gone and like there's nothing in her room other than that sweater and her old bed, he realizes too is like how much he needed her, how he needs her, and you see it sink in with him. And it was that's, and I think that's like one of those things where I don't think I ever really had like a very contentious relationship with any of my siblings. Like Arnold, correct me if I'm wrong, but at least before Donnie, our older brother Donnie, had moved out to college, Arnold and I did have somewhat of a contentious relationship. Like he would do things to get me mad, and then he'd run and hide either behind my mom or he'd hide behind Donnie, and then Donnie and I would get in fights, or my mom would get mad at me, and it was like I didn't do anything. Arnold was provoking me. But
I'm
then
sorry.
after Donnie had moved away, like we had
I
only each
realized.
other.
I realized, like,
Oh,
oh
Yeah,
damn, he's not here to protect me. All right, I gotta do something.
I gotta watch Rocky 4 and start pumping iron.
No, he was watching
But to be
John Claude
honest,
Van Damme.
but to be honest, like that was the moment that Arnold and I, our relationship got better. We became like closer. Like I feel closer to Arnold now than I do with my older brother. Like not to say that I don't have a close relationship, but I know so much more about Arnold. He knows so much more about me. We're so close that
Well,
like
that
I
shows
get
maturity on your part, right? Because a lot of people don't mature ever with their
yeah
siblings, even. You
yeah.
know, I had a boss one time. The quick anecdote, since this has become the anecdote hour. I had a boss one time when I started working there. You know, this is a 65-year-old man, and we were making small talk. Like, oh, do you have family? Do you have siblings? He's like, yeah, I have one brother. I'm like, okay. Like, did you talk to him? Like, what does he do? He's like, oh, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in decades. I was like, oh shit.
At
So
what point do you go like, no, I don't have a brother, and then just
yeah.
avoid that whole awkward situation? Like, no, I don't have a brother.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
hope
just-
that never happens between the
yeah.
brothers Collego. I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I think you guys are a lot closer than even you realize. You know what I mean? So
If I was in that situation and then I was talking to, I asked your boss that, I would have been like, have you ever seen Home Alone? Because in the movie, he hadn't talked to his son in forever, and you should
yeah.
talk to him.
Oh,
Maybe you
you're
get
the old
the
guy
old
with the
man.
shovel.
yeah. Get a
Um,
little inspiration.
little inspiration. Yeah. Anyway,
Right, we're
I
Didi.
agree with Alex though. I feel like the brother and the sister had a nice moment of reconciliation at the end, and I thought that was very sweet and also very like the rest of the movie, very very grounded in reality. But yeah, that's Didi in a
Very,
nutshell.
very real. Very real. Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Any other quick thoughts before we wrap her up tonight, guys?
Um,
Surprisingly, no. I mean, I guess I'll talk about a couple of things during my review, but like that,
No,
like
go
I said,
ahead.
a very okay, I'll go ahead then. Uh, and I guess I'll just conclude it with my review of the movie too. So, you know, like the funny thing about Didi is that like we spent this entire episode not really talking much about the movie, but I think that shows the importance of this movie in general because we're sharing past things, which means that we all relate to this movie in some shape or form. And I think that what they were going for is exactly that. It's a timepiece. Where we're familiar with all of it. We've had those experiences, and although we have, our different time frames of what we were doing during this time, we can all relate to this kid, in our own way. Because there's things in this movie that like I'll never experience, and then there's other things where I'm like, yeah, I've totally experienced this whole thing, especially when it comes to the relationship with the parents and siblings because I have a little brother. Um, a lot of interesting things that I was reminded of, and there was like a moment in time where like he was saying something to the girl that he was trying to. Oh, it was that moment with the cell phone where they were like, "Oh, hey, I can get her for you in this one sentence," and then your friend steals her phone and then says some crazy shit to them.
That was a good
And
moment.
it's like I've been in that situation before. Maybe not on text because I couldn't afford a phone at the time, but it was more like an in
ICQ.
person type of thing. Yeah, whereas like there's this girl that me, and I don't mean to share like another story, but I'll wrap it up in a nice bow and stop after that. But um, me and her like started talking to each other through a message, like a little letter in the desk. She had the period before me, I had the period after her, or whatever point in time and day I had that specific class. I always sat in that same desk and I always exchanged letters with this girl. And it got to the point where it was like we exchanged letters so much and so often, that me and her wanted to like meet up finally. And we both finally built up the courage to meet because we didn't know what each other looked like. And
How old
it's
were you?
something,
What grade?
uh, well, this was like middle school for sure. This was like
Oh,
seventh grade, whatever. My repeat seventh grade. And what ends up happening is like we decided to meet up at a certain place in school. We wrote it in the letter and we're like, meet up at this time during lunch. We're like, cool. And I thought she was going to be like really cute. And to my surprise, she was very cute. I was like, oh, wow. And she thought I was cute too. And it was like a wonderful moment. But then my friend, Eric French, came in.
Goddamn Eric French.
And by the way, I want to point out that yes, she was a very beautiful black girl. Anyway, and it does come into effect because it becomes absolutely terrible. So Eric French comes in
I'm
and
listening.
sees her as I see her at the same time. And you know what he does? He's like, oh my god, she has a beluga head. And fucking
beluga.
ruins it. She
Oh.
cries. She ends up crying, running away to her
Oh.
girls in the girls' restroom. And I look at my friend like he's the biggest piece of shit of all time. and
Yeah.
and
Oh
but
my gosh.
here's the thing, I because I was so socially awkward, I didn't know how to handle that situation, so I fucking let him say and do what he wanted, and that was the end of that.
Oof.
And even though and the most awkward thing about that, and that wasn't the only awkward thing, the most awkward thing about that is when I got into freshman year of high school, guess who's in my math class sitting next to me?
Beluga head.
And
Oh my
beluga head.
god.
But here's the thing, she had a glow up
Oh my
since
god.
middle school, and she was fucking hot, dude, for high school. She
Oh,
was
Wow.
tall, she was
What you should
everything,
have
dude.
said was, "I'll have you know, belugas are some of the smartest whales."
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a key moment in my time. And Didi, this movie Didi, really brings up those really pivotal moments in life, lessons learned, um, and I think, even though we didn't talk a whole lot about this movie, I think we in return we did talk about it by sharing our own experiences as children growing up similarly to these kids. And for that, I want to give this movie a 4.5 stars out of
Wow.
5. I
Wow.
definitely recommend it. And I'll say one last thing about like the entirety of how this movie was filmed. I actually have film that I can't unfortunately get out of a little video cassette tape because I have to have a camera specifically. It's a high 8, and it has my experience filmed for a certain portion of time between middle school and the beginning of high school. And I'm like, this movie like has everything that I've lived through, and it's like filming things, just random things. Yeah, it may not have been skate videos or anything, but if I were to bring those videos back, I'd be like, man, I like did the same shit as this kid too.
You should find one of those tape to digital services near you,
Yeah, I need
So-
or
to
even online.
I need to
you
do
can-
that or get the camcorder myself, which might be a few $100s. So
So
Yeah,
you
we'll see.
essentially need to take the tape that's in that cassette and transfer it to
I
another
need
one.
I need a high 8 video
Yeah,
camcorder.
he needs a camera to
Oh.
use as a tape deck.
I can't. Unfortunately, they don't make, for whatever fucking reason, they don't make converter VHSs for those digital cameras because they're such a specific
Yeah.
videotape type.
I was
There's
going to say,
something-
This
I
is
know
not
a
this
guy
is
who's
not a
really
land
good
before
at
time situation, Arnold.
Yeah.
I could call up the homie Hans. He
Arnold's,
did a really good job at transferring.
Arnold's high school yearbook was a stone tablet, right, Arnold?
All right, Moses.
No, Justin, thank you for that. That was a great story.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you
Not know
can
where I was
find
going.
me on my socials.
Oh yes,
Shibs the Zombie. Find me on Instagram. You can click the link in my profile. It sends you to all the other stuff I do. So Shibs the Zombie. Again, 4.5 out of 5. Yeah.
awesome, possum. All right, Alex. Let's go to you next. I know this movie means a lot to you. So what are your
Yeah.
final thoughts on
I
it?
had in her. I had a lot of notes. I think I had more notes on this movie, or at least just a lot to say. I'll never get them out. I probably will try to write an essay about this film for our blog. So
You should do it
hopefully
as a
look
blog.
out for that.
I'll throw it up on the website.
Yeah. But I do have some like quick notes. The first scene reminds me of when Donnie Appleseed, we were out and about. Arnold was there, and we were being little fuckabouts and doing dumb shit. And we went to one of his enemies' houses, and he like hit a mailbox with a putting club. And it sounded like somebody shot a shotgun at us, and it like freaked me out. So I ran back to my car, but and everybody thought that same thing. But it was he just destroyed this mailbox. That just remind me of that moment in our history.
Man.
Let's see.
Especially around Halloween. Gosh. We was like,
we were
right.
we were little
It's time
assholes.
to cause trouble.
Yeah.
Arnold, were you dressed as the Rizzler?
There was one year that I dressed up as Bruce Lee. I had a kung fu
yeah.
suit. And
I remember you had the blood stains like from
Put fake
Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, put fake blood.
Yeah.
It was a black kung fu suit, and people are like,
Yeah.
"Where are you? Are you supposed to be some sort of ninja or something?" I was like, "No, I'm
Yeah.
Bruce Lee."
They're like, did you get stung by
You
a
don't
bee?
get it.
Like, what?
You can't tell that I'm Asian and this is a kung fu suit. Come on.
All right, I didn't buy a costume at Kmart.
Yeah.
This was for my
Then,
You
kung fu
used
um,
a real gi. Are they called gis in karate, or is that just for jujitsu? A gi.
I can't remember what they're called.
I
Kung
just-
fu suit.
I know
That's what we'd always call them. Kung fu
suit.
suits.
I use
they-
ghee to cook
yeah.
with. Is that the one?
No, what?
No.
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 Oh,
No.
Anyway.
I know.
A gi. Anyway,
So early YouTube tutorials look like clinical, like very, very clinical sometimes. Like that whole how to kiss. It looks so like some lab came up with it. It was like how to kiss your partner. I was like, man, it just reminded me of like going into work and being taught how to use like a Xerox machine and how to change out the ink or something like that. It was so
that's all
so
kissing is,
so
making
clinical,
copies of
you know?
yourself.
Yeah. And then yeah, that's pretty much it right now. There's like I said, I have a lot. This era, the MySpace era, reminds me of that specific time. It was a very pivotal time in my life. How you guys talked about how you used MySpace to meet people and everything. For me, that was an era where like 2007, 2008 was the emergence of the Ghost Channel. When we started doing shows, Johnny and I remember,
Johnny
and
Garnett.
that was another moment too that I thought was so cool. Like I remember meeting the first band on MySpace that had ever they actually reached out to me. This band called No Paws No Lions, and I think they're, to be honest, like for me, like I still listen to the album, their first album, to this day. They're no longer together, but they reached out to me because they saw that I started following them, and I liked. I don't know if I can't remember. You could like posts, right, on MySpace, or could you comment? I can't remember.
Today?
No, back then. Back
No,
then.
back then, yeah, you're able to like posts and actually dislike posts too. So there are
Okay,
people that could dislike,
Oh,
and then
but they could
Facebook
see
done
that
away
you
with the
started
dislike
following
stuff.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
absolutely.
could like
Yeah,
see. Oh, well, they
everybody
were
had
friend.
status
They had to
updates.
approve them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but
Yeah, that'd be
anyways,
approved friends. Yeah.
yeah, they looked at my profile page and they like saw that I was going to San Diego I would go to San Diego Comic Con, and they connected with me on that. Right, what I thought was really cool, and that's how like I started meeting other bands because I realized that they're just like me too, you know? And just like that moment where like Didi meets those skater kids, like he into skating like he is, they were into like the music and the comic books and the movies that I was into. And so that kind of showed me a pathway to like being able to do shows that I could meet all these people and I shouldn't be afraid to talk to these people. And like I was that because of that I was able to like turn on a switch just to be able to like meet people, you know. I and that era kind of changed my life, you know. Um, I owe a lot to that, to just that era, also just being able to become more confident with who I was, you know. Like I still my confidence still wavers to this day because like you go through shit and it's like knocks you down a few pegs, especially like you go through hard times, you know. But then you realize when you become your authentic self, like how Didi finally realizes that about himself at the end of the movie, you know. Um, that's a lesson that you learn in life, however late or early it's an important lesson that you need to learn. Um, like authenticity is key. Being who you are, being uh, appreciating who you are and appreciating the people. Like you can't change. Like one of the things I learned too recently was like love languages. You'll like most often you'll never get it like the what you need from other people, like in the love language that you respond to most. You know, but you have to accept that and like like that's where you have to learn. Okay, but this is how they show their love, and this is and as hard as it is to accept, if you want to be able to like move forward like how Didi did, he saw how his mom cared, like when at the very end when she's picking him up from school and she's like he's telling him like, oh, how was your day, she's asking him how was your day, and like, oh, I signed up for visual arts, and he's like, oh, that's great, and she says, rather than like I love you or anything like that, she says, are you hungry? That's like a thing that like Asians do all the time.
Yeah,
Are you
my
hungry?
dad does that.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's a love language because they're trying to show you they care. And when they go home and they're sitting at the dinner table, and then he's just eating away, and then she's like sitting there appreciating him, and that was such a beautiful moment. I thought, like, it was
yeah.
just that unsaid thing
Man,
between the two of them, you know.
what I would give, because I had that happen before, where my mom, I was just like, "What are you doing, watching me or whatever?" What I would give for like my mom to just come over and just do that, again,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
and the sad thing is like I don't ever see that happening ever again. It's kind of a
yeah,
weird feeling.
yeah. It's hard to realize that like those moments are few and far between sometimes, you know. But we have to appreciate them for when they what they are. Like we have to appreciate those moments and things like that because we have to like we never know when if or when we'll ever get them. And
Yeah.
Imagine
that's
having kids and then thinking, "Oh God, I hope they don't grow up to resent me as much as I resent my parents for certain things."
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, guys. Fingers crossed.
But
I
yeah,
feel like you're doing a good job, Adrian.
I think so too, Adrian. I
Thank.
think
I appreciate that. It's believe me, it's not always sunshine and rainbows, but I try to do my
yeah,
best.
I
but I think
resent you, you piece of shit,
but you can tell he loves
daddy.
you because like in the pictures that you post, like he like he's smiling and like and almost like he like it's that unsaid thing, like with Didi and his
Yeah,
mom.
he loves to make both of us laugh. His mom and me. He's a little jokester.
Yeah,
He's really is a jokester. So I
yeah,
appreciate that a lot. As someone who did stand up many,
yeah.
many, many, many years ago, I appreciate that a lot.
But yeah, overall, like you guys know, I love this movie. Um, like that's why I was pushing so hard to like I really want to show you guys this movie. I think you would appreciate it on so many levels. This movie is just layers upon layers upon layers. You could talk about it on the surface level of like the culture that was going on. You could and what I thought was cool about it, I I didn't intend it to happen this way, but we're watching it in during the month of Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month, and it's one of the movies that's been on so many lists for Asian American Pacific Islander history for like films to watch during this month, and it's like in so many like and it's up there with like a lot of really cool like Asian films like Everything Everywhere All at Once. Um, uh, a lot of the Wong Kar Wai films, obviously, Chungking Express is
Crazy
on
Rich
there.
Asians.
Enter the
Yeah,
Dragon.
actually, it is. That's one of them. That's one of them. Yeah.
Enter the Dragon?
So yeah, it's what's that?
Enter the Dragon?
Probably. I would
No,
assume so. I
Crazy
mean,
Rich
Bruce Lee,
Asians, I think, is what.
Ah.
crazy rich Asians, but I'm sure Enter the Dragon is on the list too.
Better luck
'Cause-
tomorrow.
Oh yeah, it is. Better Luck Tomorrow is on there
Shout,
too.
shout out to what, like
The
episode
Last
8 or something?
Samurai.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Tom Cruise.
Ghost dog.
I mean, Tom Cruise totally passes as Asian, right?
Kung Fu the TV series. But anyways, yeah, for me, 4.5. I strongly recommend it. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. It's relatable for so many people. You don't have to be Asian to appreciate this film. It's a good coming of age film, a very good coming of age film, and it's one of the like, I was watching this YouTube channel, the Fung Bros. They were talking about like how is this the last good like coming of age film, especially for Asian, like in the Asian diaspora. Like I like how can like anybody top this as like a coming of age film? I'm sure good ones will come out, but like it's I don't know. It's a
This
it
is a
resonates
hard
with me.
coming of
Like
age
it
movie.
hits really home. It's like I love it so much, and I'm glad you guys loved it as well. Um, you can find me on Daily Dares on Instagram, and over there you can find all the stuff I'm involved in. Go follow me on Depop. Um, I Collectible Galaxy. Unfortunately, Justin, I know you're a My Chemical Romance fan. I should have told you that I was selling it. I have a My Chemical Romance T-shirt, and it just sold like on Monday.
Yeah, it's
I was like,
okay.
oh shit.
It's all good. One day.
Yeah, but I got a good amount of money. They paid like I sold it for like $40.
Wow. Not bad.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, Alex. Well, thank you for that. Arnold, give us your final thoughts and where can people
Oh.
find you?
Yeah, Alex, you mentioned that there's so many different levels of like that we can talk about this movie. And for my review, I'm going to talk about it. Just relating to the age that they were in that movie, because there's we talked a lot about like how he's struggling to find his place and trying to fit into and all that. And some people they have a good feel younger. Some like right around that age. Some don't even doesn't happen until after high school. Some people don't even until they die. Um, but I mean, everyone. So everyone's different. But like um, that time of you know going into high school, um, I things didn't really happen exactly like that, but I did see a lot of that, and the way things happened for me was a little bit different. But because I did see a lot of it, and so I can relate a little bit in that sense. Um, Being Asian and also kind of having a little bit of similar kind of I mean my parents wasn't exactly like that, but few things like culture wise, in terms of like, oh, you need to the expectations on do good in school so you can go to college, so that way you have a good life, and that way you have a good job and you can make good money, and then you'll be happy.
There was a lot of
Uh,
pressure for us to like kind of follow in the footsteps of our older brother Donnie too.
oh yeah, being like the first. I think like in of all our, not just our immediate family, but like a lot of our
Of our
relatives.
whole family, of our whole
Yeah,
family, he was the first to go to college and graduate.
you graduate from college, and so that was like, you know, and then here I am in high school, get caught with weed and suspended, and then I for me, well, my I guess like I just what was um um, I just accepted it. Like that was like, oh, that was my identity, but it wasn't really, because I was like at school, I was a big old pothead, and everyone like knew that about me. Yeah, but then on the weekends,
Were
yeah, yeah. But then on the weekends, here I am going to church, and maybe being dragged to church, but like I never didn't really put up a fight about it or anything. Maybe I made up excuses and stuff like, "Oh, I got homework and stuff," but like that was still very. I kind of felt like I lived two lives. It wasn't um, myself, and I remember when it like some of my cousins who were like who would get girls and stuff, and then how Didi had his friend talk or text the girl, and like, oh, you're all set, you guys got a date now or whatever. I wanted that to happen to me, but then like I remember my friends, they'd be like, dude, just be yourself, man, just be yourself. I'm like, man, but how did you do that? I can't do that. Like, can you do it for me? But then you think about it, like that's so lame. Like, no, you got to have your own game. And so I feel like I didn't really have that game um in high school. And
Yeah,
so
oh, I just wanted to touch about like the, yeah, there was a lot of duality for our who we were, because like it was our family was very religious. My parents are, you know, were very religious, so we had this sort of kind of duality of we're trying to be these good kids, but then like there was something within us that wanted to be come out and be like show who we are, show like what we cared about, our passions and everything. And I think that's the same thing with you, Arnold, right?
yeah, and it turned out to be the biggest pothead. Uh, um,
that's a
uh,
character building moment, Arnold. Don't judge yourself too harshly.
but no, but where for me, where I really, as a person, came out was when I got a job, because it's like you're thrown into a fire, and depending on the type of work that you have, my first job was a front desk. I can't believe that I got a front desk job at the Courtyard Marriott. But my mom she knew somebody there, and they got me the job. But that was a time that I kind of just blossomed as a individual, and but
Didn't she also
um,
kind of get in trouble there too? Like, did some
yeah.
stuff happen there?
Yeah, yeah. So like Didi calling that girl what did he say? Oh, you dumb bitch. I took it to the next level. Well, also okay, so that me and that girl we kind of had a thing going on, like coworkers and stuff. This is like I was single then, single, ready to mingle, was mingling, and like she like I just didn't control myself. Like she slammed the door on my face, the refrigerator door, and I was like, oh, what the hell? And I just went Psh. And I didn't even realize it. I was like, oh damn, I had a because I was working in the kitchen that day, and then I had a latex glove on, and so I was like, whoa, it sounded extra loud. And then yeah, that was kind of, and they really liked me there at work, and so they wouldn't really they didn't want to fire me, so they made me resign. And yeah, not sure. I wouldn't get in trouble for talking about that, would I?
I think the time for that has passed.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I don't think there's a statute of limitations on fucking around in a resort town.
Oh yeah,
I have some stories
so
about that, but I'm not going to get into that tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so I really love this movie. There's a lot more different parts that I can mention that and laugh about. Um, but I thought it was a really really good movie. Um, the day that I watched it, you saw me earlier holding that little baby. Uh, that night we were asked to babysit her, and so while their parents, my stepdaughter, when they went to go watch the movie, and so we had her until like 9:30 or 9:45, and then I started watching the movie like at 10, and then I'm like tired, but didn't fall asleep at all. So Z rating 0, and my overall letterbox rating, I give it a 4.20. No, I give it a 4. I'll give it a 4. A very, very
Orale.
solid 4. You can find me on all the socials, Arnie Collego, and that's my rating.
That was my Cheech Marin impression, but I don't think you guys liked it. That's okay though. That's okay.
Yeah,
I
loved
forgive
it.
you.
It is,
True
no,
friendship. True friendship is forgiving the ones that don't laugh at your dumb impressions. That's what true
Hey, what is this shit, man? It's Doberman.
No, thank you for that,
no,
Arnold. I appreciate your thoughts and your I appreciate all you guys' stories. Like I said,
I want
I
to
have
hear
many of
your
my own,
thoughts.
but what's
No,
that?
I want to hear your thoughts, Adrian.
Well,
We
I'm
saved
glad
the
you
best
asked,
for
Arnold.
last.
No. No, my thoughts are pretty straightforward. I really enjoyed this movie on many levels, as you guys mentioned. There's a lot of layers to it. Relatability as far as teenage angst, growing up, friendship, social circles, social media, and the coming of age of social media, especially. Um, you know, multi-generational households and multicultural. Not even multi. Well, actually, yeah, multicultural. I mean, Didi had a lot of multicultural friends from what I saw, and I don't even know, where did this movie take place. Was it California? Do we know? I don't even know.
Fremont, Northern California,
Yeah,
Oh
no,
yeah,
like
yeah.
closer to like the Bay
California.
Area.
You know why California is a supreme state? Because California is a tapestry of culture. I don't care what anybody says. California is it's not only a tapestry of culture, but it's like the epicenter of culture as well, whether you want to accept that or not. I mean, 38 million people, right, from all over the world. And
It
I
can't
feel
be
like,
wrong.
yeah, you know, you can you grow up in California, almost any part of California, and you're gonna have a similar racial makeup that you saw in this movie, which I think I really appreciated. So, to me, it's the most grounded coming of age story that I've seen in a long time. Probably the most grounded coming of age story. And like I said, just the relatability factor alone is, you know, is a lot. There's a lot to appreciate there. So I'm going to give this movie 4 stars out of 5. I think this movie has a huge rewatchability score as well, just because there's just a lot to take in. You know, there's a lot of nuance that you might not catch the first time. You know, and in my case, I had to rewatch the scenes with the mom to know what the hell she was saying. So that was interesting. But yeah, 4 stars out of 5. You can find me on the interwebs at Boots Too Big, and you can find the show Never Seen a Podcast, neverseenapodcast.com, where we upload all of our episodes as they come in. You can follow us on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, and X. Check out our website. Send us an email, podcast.neverseenit@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our show on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you like our show, please share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers. Don't do that. If you haven't, leave us a review. We appreciate it. I want to thank Kyle Mapson for our intro and outro music. Kyle Mapson of Burn Cycle for our music. And you can follow Kyle, selfies_food_and_pets. Thanks to everyone for listening. And by the way, this episode was sponsored by Habit Burger. Habit Burger. When you're here, it's because the line at In-N-Out is too long. There it is. There you go. Any final words from the gentleman?
Just to give Kyle a shout out and like some promotion, he's got some new music coming out.
Ooh, there you go.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, check that out.